Okay, everybody, welcome back to part 3 of my DVD horror collection. Sorry, I was going to do it in just 2, but now I'm ending up doing it in 3, so it'll be easier for me to do it this way. So I hope you stayed with me and aren't bored yet. So let's get going now into part 3. Starting off on this last shelf, double feature with My Bloody Valentine and April Fool's Day. Great slasher double feature. Next, we have Robert Mitchum and Shelley Winters in The Night of the Hunter. Next, we have a 4-pack of Nightmare on Elm Street movies, number 1, 2, 3, and 4. That's all the Nightmare movies that I have. Well, I take that back. I did pick up for $1 at a used bookstore the other day. I picked up Freddy's Dead, the final Nightmare. I haven't watched this yet. I hear it is pretty bad, but for $1 it's worth picking up. Then we have the Nightmare on Elm Street remake from a couple of years back. Next we have The Old Dark House with Boris Karloff, Melvin Douglas, and Gloria Stewart. You might remember Gloria Stewart as the older version of Rose in Titanic. Next we have Dario Argento movie Opera. Very underrated film, The Orphanage by Guillermo del Toro. Very good horror movie. Love that. Also Nicole Kidman in The Others. Great ghost story. Love it, with a great twist ending. Next we have, of course, from way back in the 70s, Phantasm. Commercials for that movie used to scare me as a child. I also have Phantasm 2. That's all the Phantasm movies that I own. I figure if they can't resolve all the issues in 2 Phantasm movies, then, what's the point? Next we have the Piranha remake with Elizabeth Shue from a couple years back. Of course, speaking of ghost movies, Poltergeist, everybody's favorite. Gotta love that. Stay Away from the Light, Carol Ann. Jamie Lee Curtis in her Scream Queen role in Prom Night. Another cult classic, The Prowler. It's another Tom Savini film. Great slasher effects. Next we have Rec or Record and Rec 2, which of course these are the English dubbed, not dubbed, but subtitled versions. They remade them, of course, in English and called them Quarantine, but it's basically the same movie shot for shot in there. Next we have The Ring, of course, classic horror movie. And speaking of classics, how about Mia Farrow in Rosemary's Baby from 1968? Very underrated movie, Session 9 with David Caruso. Yeah, this was filmed at the Danvers State Mental Hospital that was closed down about 20 years or so ago in Massachusetts near Boston. Very creepy atmosphere in the place. Next we have Seven with Morgan Freeman and Brad Pitt. Gwyneth Paltrow and Kevin Spacey. Of course, everybody knows that movie. It's a classic. Now for a little horror sci-fi cheese fest. Gotta love it. Here is Sharknado. Yeah, had to add that to the collection because I loved it when it was on the Sci-Fi Network. Next we have the made-for-TV miniseries, 3-episode miniseries of Stephen King's The Shining. Yeah, if you love the novel and want to see a story that's more in line with the book than the Stanley Kubrick version, this is the one to see. It's actually quite good. Love that. But of course, there's always room for both, so you got to have the Stanley Kubrick, Jack Nicholson Shining. This is a 4-pack of Stanley Kubrick movies with The Shining, 2001: Space Odyssey, Barry Lyndon, and Eyes Wide Shut. Basically picked that up for The Shining in 2001. Next we have a Japanese horror movie called Shudder. Pretty good, another kind of a ghost story. Of course, a modern day classic, Jodie Foster, Anthony Hopkins in Silence of the Lambs. How about Bruce Willis in The Sixth Sense? Another M. Night Shyamalan movie. Another cult classic slasher film, Sleepaway Camp, which if you haven't seen this and you watch it, make sure you watch to the very end. The last scene is the most memorable scene that everybody talks about in that movie as well. Next we have Johnny Depp and Christina Ricci in Sleepy Hollow. Another found footage film that's not all that great, the St. Francisville Experiment. It's okay, but I don't think it reaches the Blair Witch Project. My favorite Dario Argento film, Suspiria. If there is such a thing as making horror beautiful to watch, this is the movie that accomplished it. Just his use of color and lighting is incredible. You can't take your eyes off the screen. It just sucks you in how beautiful the cinematography is, and yet it's a slasher film for the most part. Yeah, it's kind of strange, but I love that movie. Next, one of the few steel books that I own is the 2-disc Ultimate Edition of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Yeah, I don't have too many of those steel books. And of course the remake of Texas Chainsaw from a couple of years back. Well, more than a couple of years, but next is a fun anthology of horror movies. Now this actually came out in like the mid-'80s, so there's a lot of great horror movies that aren't included in this, but this is called Terror in the Isles. Yeah, it's a lot of fun with Nancy Allen and Donald Pleasance as your hosts for this. Fun movie. Yeah, it's dated because, like I said, it came out in the mid '80s, but still a lot of fun. Vincent Price in The Tingler, which is a lot of fun for an older movie. This one has become one of my now traditional ritual movies for Halloween to watch, Trick or Treat, which is basically 4 or 5 vignettes of different things happening on Halloween night. And first half of the movie, you have no idea how these fit together. Second half of the movie, you see all the vignettes starting to tie together into one big story. So it's well done, well made, and very scary in some places. Next we have an Australian film called The Tunnel. Again, another found footage kind of movie. Next we have the homage to the Universal monsters. We have Hugh Jackman, Kate Beckinsale in Van Helsing. You know, where he fights off Frankenstein's monster and Dracula and the Wolfman and everybody like that. It's great. Speaking of the Wolfman, here is the original Lon Chaney. Claude Rains, Ralph Bellamy, and Bela Lugosi is in this as well. The Wolfman, classic Universal monster. And last but not least in my horror movie collection is the remake of the Wolfman with Anthony Hopkins as well. So we have that in the collection as well. All right, so that wraps up the third video, or third part of my horror movie collection. Next up will be romance and romantic comedies. Thanks for watching. Bye.